think it's quite important to remember that actually we don't really take turns in families. It's very natural for people to interrupt each other and to overlap. And if your family isn't taking turns, that's just a very normal way of a family to be. But for the child who stutters, taking turns is going to be very helpful to them. So it's something you might need to think about putting in place to support their fluency.
Well, one of the things that's true of very young children is that it's hard for them to think about what they want to say and be monitoring the conversation to know when it's their turn to jump in. So interrupting and talking over the top of each other is actually pretty natural. So I think for little children, if you can use an object, let's say you're at the dinner table, you can use a child's toy, a block or something like that, or maybe the salt shaker or something that when someone wants a turn, they can ask to have that item, and whoever has it, it's their turn to talk.
Within the family, it's quite straightforward for a parent to say, now it's Lisa's turn or it's Francis's turn, so they are actually directing it quite openly. Let him finish, as long as everybody in the household has equal turns and they know that they will get a turn eventually. You don't want the child who stutters to have more of the time, because the other children would get a bit jealous about that.
And I think the other thing is important to remember is that the child who stutters shouldn't get an unfairly large turn in relation to his brothers and sisters.
I think sometimes parents are tempted with a child who is stuttering to feel that you know, they must be given the floor, and that would not really be teaching them very good manners, or to behave in a way that other people would accept too, if they get the idea that once they've got the floor, they can take it for as long as they like.
I'm sure that confidence is one of the big issues that parents worry about for the child who stutters. So I think it should be one of the really top of the tips about how you build a child's confidence, how you praise the child so that he feels good about himself. I don't mean focusing on the talking. I think this is much more about building up his strengths, knowing that he's good at certain things, making sure that if he's done something well, you point it out to him. That was a lovely drawing. You really took your time to do that so nicely. I think, in addition, a child who feels listened to, properly, really listened to, will feel good about himself as well. So the combination of praise, the 5 minutes, the listening skills, the taking your time, means that he's a special person.
One of the important things about giving praise that means something is really for the child to be very sure about what it is that you would like to praise about what he's done. So if he's put his toys away, it will be very important for him to know that. So I noticed that you've put all your toys away in the box where they belong. And added to that, it's also nice to be able to say something about what the child did then in a way which describes that. So perhaps to add something in like, that was really grown up of you, or that was really responsible of you, or that was really helpful of you.
And being very specific in describing the behavior that you want to praise, and then adding a label to it. Things like, you're very helpful, or you're so thoughtful, or I really appreciate you, you're really responsible. Things like that, so that the child walks away and they think to themselves, I'm really helpful. Those are all ways that'll help build their confidence.
Well, most of us lead pretty busy lives, and where we might think we have plenty of time with our children, actually sometimes it's quite hard to find time just to spend some individual time with a child. And what we find with the children who stutter is that many of them have responded really well to having a bit of one-on-one, undivided attention, one parent with that child, and no interruptions.
And that special time doesn't have to be very long either. It really it only needs to be literally 5 minutes. And making sure that that time is away from everybody else. You've shut the door, you've turned the television off, you've turned the phone off. And so for that 5 minutes, that child really does get the sense that they have your complete and undivided attention. But that little oasis of time will have been very special for that child and is really helpful.
So spending 5 minutes a day, one-on-one with your child, with the phone off, the iPad off, the television off. Maybe you're playing during that time, or you're just snuggled up and talking about the day, or you're reading a book together, something like that where that child has that undivided attention from you, and you can focus on one aspect of your communication. So if you're reading a book together, maybe instead of asking lots of questions, you might only ask one question every 3 or 4 pages. Or maybe you're working on slowing your own rate of speech and just communicating in a less hurried, less pressured manner. But spending 5 minutes a day to do that does a couple of different things. It allows you to practice that one skill that you're trying out, and it also really helps your child feel attended to, and they're getting that special attention from you, and they feel really special. And so that's why we call it special time.
And if you have other children, it might be really important to think about giving them a special time too, because what we wouldn't want to do is make it unfair. We want the child who stammers to be treated much the same as the other children in the family.
Normal rules apply. They apply as much to your stuttering child as they do to any other child in the household. And that goes for other types of behaviour as well. I think it's really helpful for parents to get the idea that if they want to know how to manage a child's behaviour at any time, they should think to themselves, if this child wasn't stuttering, what would I do? And they think, well, I would tell him off, in which case that's exactly what you need to do for the child who's stuttering, as much as it is for the other children in the house.
I think it is important to think about the whole family when you're thinking about discipline. I think that parents do get very concerned that if they tell their child off, that might make them more stressed, they might stutter more. I think that it's very important within a family that you keep the same rules for every child within the family.
It keeps the sibling competition and sibling rivalry down if kids perceive that they're all being treated equally. But the important thing is we want these kids to grow up to be responsible and polite and interact with each other in the same way we would any other child in the family. So the same rules apply.
I think it's important to keep in mind that these things are helpful not just for the child who stutters, but for all children. We're teaching them good communication skills, we're building their confidence, and that's good for every child.